Let me ask you something. Why do some people stay steady when their whole world is falling apart, while other people fall apart the second life gets hard? It's not luck, it's not personality, it's faith. And not the kind you feel on a good day when everything's easy, the kind that doesn't move no matter what hits it. Most people never build that kind of faith. They ride on emotion, chase quick answers, and wonder why they collapse the moment things go wrong. Not you. Not after this video. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly how faith like that gets built. Let's get into it. First thing you need to understand, faith isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you build. And you don't build it in comfort. You build it in fire. Think about anyone in Scripture whose faith actually moved something. You think they got there sitting in comfort, never tested, never afraid? No. They got there in the exact moment it would have been easier to give up. Faith is like a muscle. Leave it untested and it stays weak. Keep it comfortable and it stays fragile. And the day real pressure finally comes, it breaks. This is exactly the pattern James lays out. James 1:2-3 tells believers to consider it pure joy whenever they face trials, because the testing of their faith produces perseverance, not because the trial feels good in the moment, but because of what it builds. Paul says something almost identical in Romans 5:3-4, where he talks about how suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. That's the whole shift in one sentence. The fire isn't the opposite of faith, it's the process that builds it. So here's the shift. Every trial you face isn't proof God left you. It's the training ground where your faith gets forged. Once you stop seeing hard times as something that breaks you and start seeing them as something that builds you, everything changes. Your faith stops being fragile. It becomes unshakable. Let me tell you a story. You've probably heard it before, but stay with me because most people miss the actual point of it. Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar builds a 90-foot gold statue and gives one order. Everyone bows when the music plays. Everyone. No exceptions. And if you don't bow, you get thrown into a furnace so hot it will kill you before the flames even finish the job. 3 men refuse, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, not because they're fearless, not because they know for certain how this ends. They refuse because their faith was already decided before the moment of testing ever showed up. The king drags them in front of him, furious, and gives them one more chance. Bow or burn. In Daniel 3:17-18, they tell him the God they serve is able to deliver them from the furnace, and he will deliver them. But even if he does not, they want the king to know they will not serve his gods or worship the statue. Even if he does not, they had no guarantee of the outcome, and they stayed faithful anyway. So the king has the furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal, hot enough that the soldiers who threw them in were killed by the heat themselves. And then the king looks in and he's confused because he doesn't see 3 men anymore. He sees 4 walking around, unbound, untouched. When they finally step out, the record says the fire hadn't harmed their bodies at all, not a hair singed, not even the smell of smoke on them. It's almost like Isaiah 43:2 was written for this exact moment, where God promises that when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned and the flames will not set you ablaze. Here's what most people miss. The miracle wasn't that they didn't get burned. The miracle is that they walked into the fire not knowing if they would. That's what unshakable faith actually looks like. It's not the absence of fear. It's the decision made before the fire that you'll stay faithful either way. If you want faith like that, stop doing these 3 things immediately. Stop complaining about the fire. Complaining doesn't put it out. It just keeps you focused on the heat instead of who's standing in it with you. Philippians 2:14 is direct about this. It tells believers to do everything without grumbling or arguing. Stop looking for the easy way around the trial. Growth doesn't happen in the exit. It happens in the middle of the thing you're trying to avoid. Hebrews 12:1 puts it as throwing off everything that hinders and running with perseverance the race marked out for you, not the race with the fire removed. Stop telling yourself you'll believe when it gets easier. That's backwards. Faith isn't the reward for things calming down. Faith is what you choose while it's still hard. Now let's talk about what actually builds this. Do these consistently, and your faith stops being something that wobbles every time life gets hard. Feed it daily. Faith starves on silence and grows on truth. Joshua 1:8 says to keep the book of the law on your lips and meditate on it day and night, so that you'll be careful to do everything written in it. That's not a suggestion, that's daily maintenance. Stay in community. Nobody survives the furnace better alone. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked in together. That wasn't an accident. Hebrews 10:25 warns against giving up meeting together and instead encourages believers to keep spurring one another on. Do something that costs you something every day. A hard conversation, an honest prayer, a moment where you choose obedience over comfort. Faith that's never tested in small things won't hold up in big ones. Unshakable people don't feel less fear. They just don't let fear make the decision. Here's the key. Pause before you panic. The second fear shows up, stop, breathe, and speak truth out loud instead of letting the fear talk first. Paul gives the exact process in Philippians 4:6-7, where instead of being anxious about anything, we're told to present our requests to God, and the peace that transcends understanding will guard our hearts and minds. Isaiah 26:3 adds to this, promising that God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in Him. Fear comes in waves. It rises, it peaks, it passes. If you let it steer you every time it shows up, you'll never be steady. But if you let it pass through without taking the wheel, you stay in control. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Even the strongest faith fails sometimes. And that's not disqualifying. That's part of it. Peter, one of Jesus' closest followers, denied even knowing him 3 times in one night. Out of fear, out of pressure, he collapsed exactly when it mattered most. But before it even happened, Jesus told him in Luke 22:32 that he had prayed for him, that his faith would not fail, and that once he had turned back, he was to strengthen the others. That's the part most people miss. Jesus didn't just predict the failure, he already had the restoration planned. Later, by a fire again in John 21, Jesus asks Peter 3 times if he loves him, once for every denial, and each time tells him to feed his sheep, not shame. A second commission. If you've failed recently, that doesn't mean your faith is broken beyond use. It means you're still in the fire, still being shaped. The only real failure is walking away for good. The strongest faith doesn't come from never losing anything. It comes from what you do after you lose everything. Job lost his family, his health, his entire life in what felt like a single day. And in the middle of that, he says something in Job 13:15 that should stop you the same way the furnace line did, that though God slay him, he will still hope in him. Even earlier than that, right after the loss hits, Job 121 records him saying, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away," and blessing the name of the Lord anyway. That's not blind optimism. That's a decision made in the worst moment of his life. Life is not about what happens to you. It's about what you do with what happens to you. You can't control the fire showing up. You can control whether you decide ahead of time that you'll stay faithful in it. Here's the truth most people never accept. Feelings are unreliable. Some days you feel close to God, some days you feel nothing at all. If your faith only shows up when you feel like it, it's not faith, it's a mood. Paul draws the line clearly in 2 Corinthians 5:7, where he says, "We live by faith, not by sight." And Hebrews 11:1 defines faith itself as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Notice neither of those verses mentions a feeling. Unshakable faith is a decision you make regardless of how you feel that day. You don't wait to feel like praying, you pray. You don't wait to feel like trusting, you trust. Feelings come and go. A decision made and kept daily is what actually holds. Here's where it comes down to you. You can close this video, go back to how you've always done things, and stay exactly where you are. Or you can decide right now before the next fire shows up that you'll stay faithful in it no matter what happens. Joshua 1:9 says it plainly. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, because the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That decision is the whole difference. Make it today, before you need it, not in the middle of the flames. If this helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more of this, subscribe, because we're just getting started.